your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet, everybody, and welcome. Tonight my guest is Janay Marontate, and she's the author of a newly released book called Tea Magic. Now, she's been learning the secrets of kitchen witchery at an early age from her mother, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother, and now she applies her knowledge of her oils and magic and kitchen witchery to her loose-leaf tea and spice business. It's called Kitchen Witch Gourmet. She's also teaching tea leaf readings and other magic in the U.S. and in China. And so there's so much to go on tonight that we're going to run out of time in a blink of an eye. But if you're in the chat room and you have any questions for Janay, then send them along to me in private chat. And if you're not here, you can always join us at paraxradionetwork.com. So Janay, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Marla.
Oh, it's such a good book. And I always mention for books that are like magic or witch related that readers don't need to be magical folks to use them. You know, anyone can reap the benefits of the healing, especially the tea healing, of the mind, the body, and the soul. So I want to get that out of the way. People say, well, I'm not a witch. Well, you don't have to be.
That's true.
It's important because, you know, some people get, all right, but the book is about tea magic, and it's about spells and rituals and divinations, and how wonderful that you were taught by kitchen witchery from 3 generations. I mean, especially since lots of people before us never wrote their recipes down. I mean, I remember I used to ask my grandmother to give me her recipes, and she said, pinch of this and a dash of that, and she never wrote it down. So was there a family recipe book that you got as years went by?
Well, it was probably similar to your experience, a pinch of this and a dash of that. And I got lucky enough that my mom started writing things down from her grandmother, my great-grandmother. And I did have the opportunity to know my great-grandmother until I was 17.
Nice.
Yes. So I do remember her and her magic and tea, and tea just lends itself to witchery. It is a cauldron. Your teacup is a cauldron. You can put so many magical potions together for healing purposes, for relaxing purposes. And so tea was a big deal in our home. And especially, you know, growing up in the 70s in the mountains of the Northwest, there was lots of kitchen witchery / hippiness and natural healing, and it all ran together so well. And that's how I just became who I am today.
And it's a good place to be. Now, you are a kitchen witch, as we said, and there might be a few people that might not be familiar with the term kitchen witch. So can you give a little explanation?
Sure. So kitchen witchery is about creating magic from your own kitchen, your own hearth, your own things that you have around. A friend of mine once told me that it's kind of the punk rock of magic. You kind of use what's on hand. You use the spices in your cabinet. You use the teas in your cabinet. You use your pots and your pans as your cauldron. And I really liked that explanation. It kind of made me laugh. And it was like, yeah, it doesn't have to be like high ceremonial magic. It can be what you have, when you have it, and when you need it. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is.
That's perfect. And then there are tea witches. I mean, it's kind of like a byproduct of a kitchen witch. And, you know, it pretty much explains itself what that is.
Yes, using tea as your main modality and your main magical sources. You're using tea as your own healing elixirs, using tea in your own magical purposes. That's exactly correct.
Mm-hmm. So for many people, the book will be an introduction to a lot of new ideas and approaches for merging their tea with their magic. When did you become interested in doing the tea as a magical herb?
Well, like I said, tea has always been a part of my life. And in fact, it was herbal tea, really. I didn't even know tea was tea. I thought tea was peppermint for the longest time. You know, we had peppermint would just grow wild where I lived, and we would go harvest it and dry it and drink it. And my first real introduction to tea magic was adding hot cocoa mix into that peppermint tea. As a child, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it wasn't until I got older that and my mom had an English friend, and he said, you know, I'm going to make some tea, Debbie, to my mom. And I said, I want some. And he made it for me. And I thought it was just the weirdest tasting thing I'd ever had. It wasn't tea to me. And so he thought that was funny. I thought that was funny. And that was a big laugh. So that happened when I was about 5, when I really learned the difference between tea and peppermint tea or herbal tea. And I just began to realize, as, you know, coming from a natural family where tea is a means to heal yourself and a means to feel better. So many people think that tea is just to be used when you're ill or when you need to sleep. There's so many other reasons to drink tea and to use tea. I just kind of fell into using tea in so many things. Tea can be used as incense. You know, if you need some rose petals to burn, it's usually in some tea. Cinnamon teas, like the Good Earth tea. I have used Good Earth tea so many times for incense on a charcoal. And it just became something I just started doing before I even realized that it needed a name or had a name. And like I would take the peppermint tea and, you know, ice it, put it in the fridge. And then I was like, ooh, if I put this in a spray bottle and then I spray myself down with it, nice and cool and invigorating peppermint, what a magical little boost and charge that is. So it just became something I did and eventually just started sharing it with people.
It's a good share, truthfully. But, you know, you mentioned herbal tea, and I've always had people saying, well, it's not really tea. You know, it's just not really tea. And I think there's two sides of the coin on that. Do you consider it real tea, or you know, maybe those people just have to have tea, you know, like
well,
regular.
That's a really good point. You know, Camellia sinensis, that is tea. And a side note, herbal tea or green tea, white tea, black tea, yellow tea is all the same plant. What makes the difference between white tea, green tea, black tea, yellow tea, etc., is how the tea leaves, the Camellia sinensis leaves, are actually dried and prepared. That makes our green tea, our white tea, our black tea. So herbal tea, you're right, is not tea at all, but it gets lumped into tea because of the steeping method. And I believe it is a tisane or tisane, you know, however you want to say that, and that is still part of the tea drinking experience. And if we want to get really deep into it, herbal tea really is the first granny magic and kitchen witchery, right? Tea tea didn't come over to, our ancestors didn't really start drinking the tea until the early 1800s, late 1700s. So before that, our grandmothers and mothers before were drinking something.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that tastes good. Ooh, this is kind of nice in a tea. Let's drink this. Oh, this makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm. Probably going out in the yard and finding something and say, oh, let's see how this goes,
Exactly. All over the world, people put things in cups with hot water. Yerba mate from South America or Rubios. Everywhere people have a tea. And it's not tea proper. But now, since we went and, basically stole tea from China and, created this whole empire of tea with the East India Trading Company a couple hundred years ago, now tea is everywhere. And tea is very, very powerful unto itself. Tea has started world wars. Between, maybe not world war, but between China and Europe, and it created the whole opium wars, and it still survives. It is something that, tea is a drug, makes you feel good, it lifts you up, gives you good health. And though they might not have known in the 1800s that green tea has antioxidants, and I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling hydrated, and my heart feels better. They just knew they felt good. And it was nicer to drink tea than maybe a fermented beverage in the morning. So they began to drink tea in the mornings to get a pep rather than a drunk, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of people that are herbal tea drinkers because they don't they can't deal with caffeine. And that brings another question just right in the top of my head. Does a decaffeinated tea have less potency than a regular tea?
Yes. So in the early days, the first real pouring of tea, the first hot water over the tea, that's about 60 to 70% of the caffeine. So you can pour that first pour, let it steep for a few seconds, and dump it out, and then pour your water over it again. Mm-hmm. And you decrease the caffeine. So once upon a time, they would brew it, dry it, brew it, dry it, brew it, dry it, to release the caffeine. There's always going to be a little bit of caffeine in it. Mm-hmm. Now it's done chemically. And, if you want to drink it, you can, but it doesn't taste the same necessarily, but it will do the trick. I recommend, if people really want a decaffeinated tea, to really look at some of the herbal options. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of them are really, really good. And the different mixtures too, not just, it's strawberry tea or whatever. There's so many different blends that are really good in herbals. So, and some are almost like chai rather. So yeah, the whole thing is just like opening up a new world to people that haven't really thought about it, or just, okay, well, here's a Lipton, this is tea, and there's way more to it than that. And one of the things that you talked about in the book was the type of water that we use to brew the tea is very important. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, the better the water, the better your cup of tea. So I would recommend a bottled water or a really good, just pure water source if you have access to headwaters. I live not too far from Mount Shasta, where the water just boils right up out of the ground, just cold and fresh and delicious. And that's my preferred type of water. Some places really don't have access to that type of clean water. But the water is important. And there's also like a harmonic messaging in the water. So a nice fresh spring water that's coming up from the ground, I shouldn't say boiling, but by bubbling up from the ground, that's carrying newness and new beginnings and fresh starts and just coming right up. So you're imprinting that energy onto your tea as well. And if you take like some really great fresh water, be it Headwater or, a great gallon of water that you bought at the store, and maybe charge that next to like an ocean, maybe put that bottle of water into the ocean and charge it with the ocean. Mm-hmm. Now you're putting in to your tea that you're imprinting upon it, cleansing. Salt and ocean water is always about the cleanse. So mm-hmm. if you're trying to release any kind of sicknesses or anything that you have attached to you, charge your water by the ocean. Same with the lake. If you're looking for calming, get yourself some great water, charge it by the lake. If you can use lake water, if it's a clean lake water, you want to definitely bring that to a boil before you actually drink it. And again, not all water sources are safe to drink. Mm-hmm. But you can really charge that with the calming essence of a beautiful, serene lake. What's really cool is rainwater, because you can drink some rainwaters if you live far enough out of the city. And rain is great, again, cleansing. But if you're lucky enough to catch like some lightning water, so you've got that extra charge and spark and energy running through your water, wonderful. Or how about when it's raining and there's a rainbow outside? So not only are you collecting like the most luckiest water out there, but you're also imprinting all the colors and the chakra alignment of the rainbow into your tea water also, that you can use to either imbue, which is take inside and use to heal, or use magically.
Okay, got a quick question from the chat room. Is there a difference in quality between loose leaf tea and tea bags?
Yes. Loose leaf tea tends to be fresher, better, like whole leaves or wholer pieces of the leaves. The tea bags sometimes tend to be a little dustier, and not to throw Lipton's under the bus, but we are familiar with Lipton's. So their tea bags, have a nice, strong Assam tea, but it's a little bit dusty. And then there are some better tea brands out there that are beautiful, that you can see the whole herbs in, and, the tea bags have come a long way. Let's say that for sure.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, because go ahead.
One side note about a tea bag, what's really cool is if you are finding yourself like at Starbucks and you order a tea and you're waiting for a job interview or whatever, you can pull that tea out of your cup and use it as a pendulum. So as the tea is hanging from the string that it is, you can begin to ask questions kind of surreptitiously. Like, am I going to get this job? Or the person I'm about to meet is a blind date. Will I like this person? And you can, if you're familiar with pendulum work, you can use a tea bag as pendulum work.
Now that's clever. I never would have thought of that.
Tea magic.
There you go. See, I'm learning already. There's going to probably be some questions about tea leaf reading and teacup scrying. And with both of those modalities, do the type of tea leaves make a difference?
To some, if you're a good reader, throw it in there and read it. If you know that tea leaf reading is messy, and it's not like a tarot card where you see the King of Swords or it's not exactly like that.
Yeah.
So, like powdered tea leaves, if you break open a tea bag, you're going to get kind of like a dustier, smaller leaf read. Mm-hmm. Larger green leaf teas or black leaf tea, like plain tea, you're going to get different, just like longer leaves that are going to make different kind of pictures. Mm-hmm. And my advice on that is use a tea that's resonating with you. So if you're going to do a tea leaf reading for somebody who is just really wanting some heartfelt questions answered about love, relationships, marriage, use a rose tea. So you're already vibrating with rose and your heart chakra, and it kind of opens itself up to answering questions about love. It opens up the person who's drinking the tea to really kind of already be vibrating on a love level.
Mm-hmm. And tea leaf reading, all right, I've never seen it done in person, but, we all see it on TV because the movies and all that. So is it that somebody drinks a tea and then the leaves are in the cup and then you turn the cup over into a saucer, or you read what you see in the cup? Explain that to me.
I do it both ways. Like I said, tea leaf reading is messy, and it's actually called tasseography. Mm-hmm. And it's really sediment reading. So you can read tea leaves or coffee grounds or even wine sediment in the bottom of a wine glass. Mm-hmm. That's its professional term. So tea leaf scrying, or, tea scrying is when you're actually scrying into the water of the tea. And if there's leaves floating around in there, now you're tea leaf reading and scrying at the same time. So your body is mostly water, your teacup is water, and it's holding the vibration of what the person you're reading for is, looking for. So you begin to really look deep into the water and at the leaves. So classically, the tea bag was really only invented about 100 years ago. So prior to that, you would just throw it in the pot and brew it up and then pour it into your cup. And inevitably, some tea leaves would end up in your cup, stuck to the sides of the cup. Mm-hmm. That's how that would begin. So now what people do is they will put the same concept, and they sit and you talk with somebody. Tea is so social, and you're having your conversation, and you're, getting to know this person. And that's why you don't see a lot of readers like at the psychic fairs, because it takes time to drink the tea, stick the leaves. I suggest that when you get it almost all the way done, and there's just a little bit of tea water in there that you can't get out, you put your plate over the cup. I would line that with like a bar napkin or a little napkin or something. So when you flip it over, you get all the water out and you stick the leaves to the cup, that's what you begin to read. Mm. It's messy.
And it's kind of like, it's what we envision. I mean, we shouldn't be looking for something specifically. We just have to look at the leaves and stuff and see what we see. Is that kind of right about that?
Exactly. It's what you see, and if you see it, say it. Don't overthink yourself. And as I was saying, as we are mostly water, and when we're holding this teacup that's filled with basically water, and you're sitting like with your friend or your grandmother or whoever you're drinking tea with, and you're having your conversation, that no good so-and-so, I think he's cheating on me, and you're talking and you're vibrating with this water, and then all of a sudden you look into your teacup and you're seeing an axe in there. Like, oh, well, maybe we're going to need to cut this off. So, there's that, or there's, oh, Grandma, I'm so in love with him. I hope he asked me to marry him. And, you're holding the teacup and it's all vibrating together. And then you notice in your teacup, there's a ring stuck to the side. Mm. And when you're reading teacups now, your standard English teacups have the tea handle. Uh-huh. So the tea handle represents you or who you're reading for. And so the closer to the handle, the closer to who you're reading for. So that's a good tell, a good place to start. So you can also look at the teacup with the handle facing whoever you're reading for. Let's just say I'm reading for me. So the handle is facing me. And then you can cut that cup on the top in quarters. So you've got your first 3 months, your second 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and you can kind of see it as a wheel. So if you see something really close to the handle, but, to the left, oh, this might be happening in the next month or so. If you see it all the way around, maybe straight up, oh, it's about 6 months away, what you're looking for. If it swirls over to the handle, but to the right of the handle, oh, you got about a year on this. You better wait about a year. So now that you've divided it into sections, you can see where the tea clumps and it have a good idea of a timeline.
That's interesting. I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. When you said if you're reading for yourself, now I don't like to read for myself at all. And other people have said the same thing, because we might, all right, so suppose I'm doing tea reading for myself and I look at something and I don't like it. And then I'll blink my eyes and I'll try and see, make it something else. And I think I would do a lot better doing other people than myself. But can we be objective when we do readings for ourselves?
Probably not. I don't think we can either. We try. The main thing is, if you see it, say it. And if you see it, that's it. And then we always go beyond, and let me draw another card. Well, let me add some more tea. Well, let me do this. Well, so that's why if you're reading for yourself, just a quick timeline, is helpful. But I agree, it is hard. We want to always change it to the outcomes that we want.
Yeah, and we absolutely can't do it for what and it's not like we're being mean and don't care that we're reading for somebody if it's bad news or whatever. It's just that we're just kind of afraid of our own readings. So, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's true. It's true.
All right. Now, we got talking about tea and the benefits, and it is for mind, body, and soul. So what are some of the benefits? I mean, other than things we might not already know, that, we take it when we have a cold and that kind of thing.
Well, one thing about tea that just blows my mind is that tea, if you put it in water long enough, so a few hours, it doesn't even have to be boiling. This is the mind-blowing part. But it has to be sitting for a long period of time. It kills waterborne diseases. And so it really kind of helps to eliminate your bacteria that can be harmful. And we wonder, wow, why did China have such a large population, so low infant deaths? Because they're actually drinking something that's already eliminated some of the poison that can happen in still water. So drinking, like European style, we would drink the fermented wines or fermented fruit, and there would just be, besides the drunkenness that would come along with that, there would also be, rotten bacteria that would get into our bodies, and we would feed it through to our babies and cause illness. So what blows my mind is just how powerful tea as an antioxidant can be. And boiling it is just even better, because it's really pulling out all the tannins in there that's going to really help increase, your circulation, reduce inflammation, bring down pain. And they say, green tea is the best. Well, what green tea is green tea is nice, mature leaves that have come off the tea bush, and, Chinese style is either flash fried, Japanese style is flash steamed, and it retains that nice color. It's a little bit bitter, and that is like the healthiest, most antioxidant laden tea. What white tea is baby new buds coming up off the tea bush that are sparkly, have covered in the little silver hairs. That is white tea, and it has a milder flavor, high in antioxidants, not as high as the green tea that has just really brought it to the surface of the leaf. Black tea, what us Europeans really got into, really came about as the tea would be brought down from the mountains of China and taken to only one port to get it out of China, and China's huge country. And it would come down and get on the ship, and this is before even clipper ships, so it had to drive all the way around, South Africa to get to Europe, and this would take hot days, cold nights, so hot, cold, and basically, black tea is fermented. So when it got to Europe, they were just used to drinking this black tea, this fermented black tea. And they would ask, we want the black tea. We want, and the Chinese would be like, we don't even know what you're talking about. We sent you green tea. And this is one of the reasons, and somehow in that hot, cold process, in this fermentation, more caffeine developed in black tea than in green tea. And we also think that this is one of the reasons why the Europeans started adding cream and sugar to their tea to just make it taste a little better. Because they started really realizing that tea was giving them a little oomph in their step in the mornings. So let's make it a meal. Let's add some milk to it. And they really got this love and this addiction for it because it was better than drinking fermented wine or fermented juices for breakfast.
Interesting. All right. Well, we've got to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm interested in finding out more about tea magic and spirit communication. So everybody sit there and steep for a while, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
It was Halloween night, October 31st, 1936, and the spotlight was on Harry Houdini. This was Bess Houdini's final attempt to contact her beloved husband from beyond the grave, with great fanfare on the rooftop of the Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel. Join Bruce Tango and friends on May 20th, 2023 at the Merchant and Drovers Tavern Museum in Rahway, New Jersey, as he recreates the true and final seance to reach the most celebrated magician of all times, Eric Weiss, better known as Harry Houdini. You will hear the actual voices of those involved in that historic and final seance and hear what really happened that amazing night. Then, in a very unique way, we will be visited by the people in his life who knew him well and learned things about the great Houdini, his life, and his tragic and untimely death in 1926. After the seance, we will conduct our own lights-out EVP session to see if perhaps the great Houdini or those involved in the seance will cross over the veil and speak with us. This will be a night you will never forget, a paranormal event at its finest. Seating is limited and will be sold out very soon, so go to brucetango.com and make your reservation for this very spooky event.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para X. Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And my guest tonight is Janay Marontate, and we're talking about her new book, Tea Magic. And as I mentioned before the break, we're going to jump over to talking about tea magic and spirit communication. And I think that what really caught my eye about that was tea parties with spirits. So I'm sure a majority of listeners that are familiar with spirit communication in general, but maybe not as familiar with tea magic and spirit communication. So can you kind of fill us in a little bit with that?
Sure. So first of all, I like to use tea as an offering to ancestor communication, be it either in the dry form or in the cup form. Make a cup of tea, place it on the altar, talk to your grandmother all day. So there's that. That's a very basic sense of spirit communication, starting with the ones around you, the ones you love, sharing tea with them. Because I guarantee that going back 2 generations, our ancestors drank tea. They were all about it. And, it's just been recently that things have shifted more to coffees. So with tea parties and honoring the dead is something that kind of came up in a real life situation for me. And I just began doing it more and more often as a relative had passed away, and we decided to honor our relative with a tea party. And what we found is that it really brought over our ancestors and our loved ones. And every time I do it, they come over, whether I'm doing it for my own family or for friends or doing a tea party for someone else. And it is similar to, sitting at a table, having a cup of tea, placing a setting for the person you want to talk to, having a teacup for them, having maybe a picture of them, something that was close to them, connecting with them, connecting with their energy, their spirit, who they are, and honoring them with tea, asking them to join for tea. Because again, we're vibrating with water and spirit and ether and asking them to join us.
And it's something that everybody knows, everybody's drink tea no matter how far back you go, as we were talking about earlier. So I'm sure that everybody can be attracted to it. And you'd probably have a whole bunch of people in there.
Yeah. Well, they say if you offer, deities or ancestors, things like tobacco or alcohol or incense, because those things are attractive. And tea is too. It's right up there with being, sought after, a little mind altering. So it can just really kind of bring over who you're looking for. It's the bridge, you're making a bridge over your teacup.
There you go. There's another chat room question. She said, is tea used medicinally really work, like if you have a cold, etc., with whiskey and honey?
Whiskey and honey really works. So does tea. Yes. And so it's the hot, if you're just having whiskey and honey, that works. But if you're having it with tea, with a black tea, that's going to also give you a little bit of energy because it has caffeine in it. It has antioxidants in it, so it's going to make you feel better. Tea brings down inflammation. So if you're kind of swollen in your nasal passages, swollen in your body and your tummy, yes, it does work. The whiskey helps to stop the cough. That's the main reason people use whiskey. And because, it makes you feel better, makes you feel kind of woozy and great. And honey too stops cough and helps to, eliminate any bacterias in your body. So all those three things is like the trifecta. And then you can go further into that with or your herbal teas. Your peppermint helps with congestion. Your lemongrass helps with congestion. Ginger helps with a myriad of tummy aches and headaches and allergies. So adding the right herbal on top of the whiskey and honey and hot is, again, amazing. Trifecta.
Well, let me talk about this for a second. It just popped into my head. With ginger tea, there's always lemon ginger tea. And there's also just plain ginger tea. And they advertise that it's ginger tea with probiotics. Now, they're adding something to it, right?
Yes.
So it's not quite as medicinal. The tea isn't quite as medicinal. They're just throwing things in there. Does it work as well? I mean...
It does. We've come a long way with science and industry for sure, and with medicine. And anytime you get your tummy right, you get your gut right, you start healing yourself. Because it's really probiotic, right? Taking care of your insides is really what helps you take care of your outside. So they are adding that. Ginger is one of the, one of the greatest things to bring down any kind of inflammation, to kill any bacteria that you've got racing through your body. We, as a society, live in a messy planet where there's all kinds of pollution out there. We put all kinds of toxins into our body just for fun, Doritos or, whatever. We're putting all kinds of things into us. And so we're not as clean as we once were, where the nuances of ginger, lemon can really get in there and help as quick. It's consistent. Hydration is super important. So when you're hydrating your body with the water and the ginger and you're bringing down your inflammation and your pain and you're healing bacteria, it works. You just have to drink more of it. It's not a pill.
Well, I don't need my arm twisted to drink ginger tea all the time because I do. I just like the taste too. All right, so I'm jumping around again.
Yes, please.
I want to talk about zodiac teas because that really interested me. And when I got to that chapter, I immediately got to my sign because you have matching the 12 signs with corresponding teas. And so I jumped right over there, and mine was jasmine green tea, which is aligned with the sign of Cancer. And I was just smiling really happily because jasmine green tea is one of my favorites. So you knocked that up right in the ballpark.
So, yeah, so tea, when the zodiac signs were born under, what works for me really well are cinnamons and gingers, and I am a Capricorn, so I like woodsy things that you would find in the winter time, like cold barks and wintry roots. And Cancer is a lush, watery, summertime, jasmine blooming. So your zodiac teas are going to correspond to the time of year you were born and what plants are in bloom at that time.
I don't know if you have it at the tip of your tongue, but somebody in the chat room says, "What is the T for Taurus?" And I've got your book here too. I'll go digging in whichever of us gets it first.
Taurus earth sign, and herbs that correspond great for Taurus are licorice, fenugreek, slippery elm, hyssop, lavender, dandelion, sage, feverfew, white tea, black tea. Both are really good for Tauruses. It's nice, earthy, springtime, earthy kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay, nobody else is asking.
With Tauruses, you want to really kind of soothe the nerves, because sometimes Tauruses can get wound up and they get their ideas and they get kind of stuck. And so you want to get really calming to get them flowing again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was so surprised just to see, I never thought of teas and zodiac that mixed together. And I mean, it's really interesting. And I want to say right now, everything in the book is so, explained in such a great way, and you didn't miss a step on anything. Sometimes you read something and say, well, yeah, but I really don't understand this, or, you left out a definition of something. The book is really, really good in that respect. I mean, it's not like reading a textbook at all, but there's so many interesting things in there that as I started to open the book and thought, we only have an hour and I don't even know where to start.
Marla, thank you.
Well, it's true, and cancers don't lie.
So here's the thing about my book. Okay, it's the first book I've ever written, like from cover to cover. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of writing with my tea business, but this is my first real book, and I really wanted to create something that I wanted to read. Right, there's that. And I designed it to where you don't have to read it cover to cover. Mm-hmm. And like bibliomancy, you pick it up, You thumb through it, you open it up, that's what you need to know. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's a great way for this book to work. Like I'm going to go into, I opened it up to breath magic. Well, how does that work with tea? Or I opened it up to zodiac signs. How does that work with tea? Tea with the dead. What the heck is this lady talking about? I'm doing that. And so it's not really designed cover to cover. But you can, of course, read it cover to cover because why not? But thank you so much. I really enjoyed writing it, and I really wanted to put in, there's so many magic books out there about so many topics and so many things, and tea really goes with all of them. Yeah.
I mean, it's something that everybody can relate to, and that makes a big difference. It's not like you're stepping off a thing with your blinders and don't know where you're getting into. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about charging tea with stones.
Oh, yeah. So I like to charge my teapots and my teacups with with quartz crystals under the full moon. That's one of my favorite things to do, because I really like that whole energy really vibrating into the cup. I like to, nice, clean, here we go, I'm making this tea. So you can do that not only with your tools, your cups, your pots, your magic wand. And what I mean by magic wand is your teaspoons, and create that benefit with your stones and moon. So you can also use, let's go back to love. So you're using a rose tea, you're a tea leaf reader. You can put some rose quartz into your loose tea or your tea bags or whatever, just to also add that extra boost of heart healing, love kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You want to be really careful with what kind of stones you actually put into your water. First of all, stones crack and pop. So if you pop in a quartz, and it's boiling, that's not a smart idea. You want to wait until your tea is already in the pot, before you put it in there. Mm-hmm. Another rule that's really important is a lot of stones are poisonous. Yeah. And so you want to stay away from poison stones, or it's like selenite will just dissolve and it'll be so salty that's not going to work for you. But you can still charge your tea with it by putting stones that might not be safe to drink. You can still put the stone like in a muslin bag or a silk bag and place it into your dry tea, or place the stones around your teacups or teapots. Stones that are not safe to drink are anything blue and green. Those tend to be unsafe teas, and anything that can dissolve in water is unsafe. If you want to use stones in your tea magic and in your tea proper, make sure that they're big enough that they're not going to go down your throat when you're drinking your tea. That's important. And stick to your quartz family. Your rose quartz, your crystal quartz, your smoky quartz, your citrines, your amethyst. Those you can use.
Yeah, because I know I've read, about putting stones in water and, cold water or whatever, but I think it's such a good idea. I mean, crystals in general, they're so useful for so many things.
Yes, they are.
You also, we can't get into all this because there's way too much, but I just want to let people know that there are chapters on tea rituals and moon magic and sigils and symbols and tea magic, visualizations, incantations, and breath magic. And when you said breath magic, tell me about that, please.
Well, your breath is so powerful because you take in this air from the universe and you take it into your lungs, which is held close to your heart. And if you think about it, you then release it back into the universe. So all the energy that you're pulling into your lungs, it takes on your heartbeat and then is re-released. So if you were to take a deep breath and holding your cup of tea, taking a deep breath and think the words, I love you. Allow your heart to beat, I love you. And then blow that air back over your teacup. You have now used breath magic to imprint I love you onto a cup of tea that you can then serve to your family, your children, your husband, your wife. And then you take in that person's love, their heartbeat, their breath, their vibration.
It's so easy. Nothing in the book is difficult. I'm telling you guys now. It's just everybody can understand what it's written and follow the directions or learn from it. One more thing, visualizations. Let's talk just a little bit about that. Tea visualizations. Where do you begin?
Well, the easiest tea visualization is through tea leaf reading. That's obvious. But when you are meditating and visualizing how you want your day to go, hold your tea, visualize on your intake of breath how you see your situation, your magic, your happenings going. On your exhale of breath, you release all the fears that you're you don't need to carry with you. Using a really strong herbal tea like peppermint, lavender, something like that can really on the inhale also act as aromatherapy to really help stimulate your mind that creates vision and visualization.
Mm-hmm.
So you can deep breath that in, visualize what you're manifesting, what you're creating, release the negative tension, the blocks that are holding that away from you.
Okay. All right. Just got another chat room question. She says, I'm an iced tea drinker, and is hot green tea more beneficial than iced tea?
Yeah, green tea is hard to ice. Sometimes green tea can get bitter if you ice it, if you let it steep too long. But sun tea, making iced sun tea is so powerful because you're charging the tea with the power of the sun, the high noon, go get it energy manifestation of the sun. And it also carries high antioxidants and benefits. If you can create your iced tea, your green tea, make it hot, make it the way you like it. Make sure that you take the tea ball or the tea infuser or the tea bags out of the water if you're using green tea or black tea at how you like it. And then let it cool on the counter before you put it into the refrigerator. As for the benefits, it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold necessarily. Hot or cold, I think, is a comfort thing. So a trick with iced tea, which is so important and it's so easy, is so we want to let it cool on the counter and then put it in the fridge so you have a nice cold cup of tea that hasn't been diluted. But you want to take that cool tea and you want to put that in your ice trays so you can make ice cubes out of the tea so you've got cold iced tea without the dilution of water.
Yeah, that's always a good idea.
Yeah, so make your ice cubes with your tea.
Okay. There was one thing that just went in my head and out my other head, in both ears. So I'll think about it in a minute. But, as we're getting closer to the end, I want you to talk about your business and what goes on there and where it is and how it can be found and all that good stuff.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I have a loose leaf tea company called kitchenwitchgourmet.com. It's mainly online. I'm located in California, so I do a lot of events in California, but mostly online and wholesale, so you can buy it from other people's store. I manufacture herbal teas, green teas, and black tea blends. I don't carry a lot of certain teas from certain regions. I have a really great black tea I work with and a really good green tea I work with, and then I blend it all together. And I've been doing it for properly with my business for almost 14 years. And, but I've been a tea drinker all my life. So I just one day came home and I'd had another business. I had an aromatherapy company. And one day I came home and I was just like, if you could just eat magic. I mean, it was just really that simple, and it just hit me so hard. And I was like, yes, why can't we eat magic? And so I started actually with spices. So like the spice of life and the, hot and sultry passion spice, and let's eat this. And then it just grew and blossomed into tea because I wanted to name the business Kitchen Witch. And then one day it just dawned on me, witches brew tea, and I have these 3 teas that are selling like crazy. And then it just became all about the tea. So we do love tea number 3 and clarity and prosperity. And it's so much fun. And I have a lot of health questions. People come up to me and ask for, what I've got this going on, I've got that going on. And I do try to help people as much as possible. But I'm not a doctor or pharmacist. And so what I really like the idea of selling is love and happiness. And I have a abundance of happiness tea, love tea, like I said. And I really like to change people's mindsets, right? So rather than relying on like a ginger tea or a red tea for a liver cleanse or this or that, there are so many companies out there that do that. Mm-hmm. But I like to really sell you happiness and love and clarity.
Well, that's always a good thing. If somebody comes over to you and says, look, I really need a spell, for you to do a spell of tea for me, do you do individual things like that once in a while?
I do, just depending on the time, date, and, the person. And I really try to encourage people to do their own magic. I can give them the tools, and I can give them the tea. I can even help them with the spell and, really help put them in the right direction of what they want to say, how they want to say it, how they want to call in, do they want to do it in a circle? How do you want to do it? Like, what is it you're really looking for? And I can help people because sometimes people just don't even know how to be magical and how to work magic and how to, create things in their life that they're looking for. And so first I just try to get that information out of them and then give them the proper tools to create it themselves.
And I think that's really good because I do believe that when we do our own spells, it's better than somebody else's. And it depends where you get somebody else's. It might be, a 12-year-old who got on, I don't know where, but got on, here's all my spells. And you think that's somebody that's really credible. And so you never know.
You really don't. And, you've got to find your right magic people. And if you trust their magic and you really like them and you're drawn to them and you ask them, they'll be there for you. Yeah. And you got to watch out for the people that are like, oh, but give me, $7,000 and that Rolex on your wrist. You've got to be careful for sure.
True. All right. You give us out the website of your business, please.
Absolutely. It's kitchenwitchgourmet.com. And I have a 13% off coupon code for you guys. Since I'm promoting the book Tea Magic, the coupon code is Tea Magic Book 13. And if you use that on any website purchase, it'll take 13% off your whole order. So it's kitchenwitchgourmet.com, Tea Magic Book 13.
Well, thank you for that. And do you have any other websites that you have that you want to give out, or?
No, that's my whole life is my tea business and my book. That's what I do. I do have a Tea of the Month club, which is really cool. Oh. Every month you get a tea or a spice, you get a sample, and you get a mystery gift, and you get magic, and that's $25 a month, and that is just a real blast. I mean, we do all kinds of magical things at Tea of the Month. I do like crowdcasts where we do work together and we do work separately. And so if you're interested in learning more tea magic, there is Tea of the Month also. Wow, that's great. Well, I want to thank you for being with us tonight because I know you're a busy woman with the business and all that. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Marla. And we'll thank everybody else for listening in as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.
You have been listening to the Para X Radio Network.